History is full of momentous battles that have shifted the tides of war and live in the hearts and minds of people all over Europe, even today. I mean, I can think of a few just off the top of my head. Thermopylae, Cannae, and the Spanish Armada all come to mind. And these battles were important, but they're also very unique. In fact, most battles of the time were very uneventful affairs. That is, at least until Napoleon came along. Napoleon changed, at the very least, European warfare, and maybe even warfare across the entire world forever. Most battles before the 19th century were very formal affairs with relatively low casualties. For context, pre-colonial African warfare was almost ceremonial and routine in how it played out. This was also true for classical age Greek city-states. Armies traditionally met at predetermined locations and pushed their shields against one another until one was overpowered by the other. Or for a more modern reference, European warfare before the 18th century generally consisted of two armies standing in a straight line and firing until one ran out of ammo or retreated. Tactics were fairly straightforward and there weren't many orders given out during the heat of battle, as communication with flags is rather difficult. In fact, some European armies had marching bands within them as commanders believed it kept morale up. It's true though, in fact this tradition persisted all the way until World War I, and even today really. But back to the topic at hand. Napoleon really did change history, and more specifically for this video, warfare. Napoleonic warfare changed the way nations thought about war in three main ways. 1. Army size and equipment. The scale of warfare increased dramatically during the Napoleonic Wars, especially in Europe. 2. Separation of artillery and infantry divisions. Cannons had been around long before Napoleon, but Napoleon used them in ways never before imagined. 3. Extreme mobility of troops. Napoleon's army was very mobile and would consistently outflank and outmarch its enemies. Napoleon's lightning warfare also became the basis for another conqueror's plans for European domination.
I wonder who that could be. Was it Mussolini?
No, Ian, it wasn't Mussolini. First off, Napoleonic warfare was on a scale all on its own. While the King of France could expect to field around 20,000 soldiers in the 16th century, Napoleon's Grand Armée consisted of well over 500,000 soldiers from nations all across Europe. And that's without any substantial population growth. With armies that large, France was forced to subdivide its military into separate and autonomous divisions that averaged around 25,000 men. So how did Napoleon create this behemoth army? Well, mostly conscription. For most of European history, armies consisted of regulars and professional troops, bolstered by mercenaries. Conscription occurred, but only in times of great emergency. But France was broke and fighting almost all of Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries, so they needed an army. The Jourdain Law was passed by the Directory in 1798 and proclaimed, any Frenchman is a soldier and owes himself to the defense of the nation. With nearly infinite manpower at his disposal, Napoleon equipped his troops with the modern rifle known as the Musket Model 1777. A rifle that became the staple of every European army till the end of the Napoleonic Wars. Traditionally, each one of these divisions would have had cannons within them for support, but Napoleon's first post was with an artillery division, and he really understood just how important those big guns were. So Napoleon decided to separate the infantry and cannons into different regiments. These newly formed artillery brigades were a great benefit to Napoleon's army, and the concept is now used by all modern armies. Napoleon used his artillery to soften up targets for infantry attacks and cavalry charges. Now this isn't a military history show, but it's important to remember this because this tactic was used again en masse 100 years later during the First World War. And not only was the French artillery strategy more effective than the rest of Europe, due to the separation of infantry regiments and artillery brigades, French soldiers could focus on their strengths. On top of this, French cannons were lighter than most others. For example, British 12-pounders weighed about 3,100 pounds, while their French equivalents weighed approximately 2,000 pounds. Some might say there's a ton between them. I'm sorry, my friends love puns. Anyway, there was one more difference between the Grand Armée and the rest of Europe. Speed. Napoleon demanded high marching speeds, which meant his army was much faster than the rest of Europe. This served him well countless times, such as in the battles of Ulm, Friedland, and Toggenhausen. With the speed of his army outmatching any of his opponents, Napoleon was able to quickly overwhelm his opposition and take control of the mainland. In short, Napoleon's strategy revolutionized warfare for all of Europe and possibly the whole world. Thank you for watching.